The Second Amendment is one of the most fiercely debated and emotionally charged parts of American law, sparking passionate arguments in courtrooms, legislatures, and living rooms across the country. It reads, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." These words, written over 2 centuries ago, continue to shape the nation's legal and cultural landscape. For generations, Americans have argued over whether this amendment protects an individual's right to own guns or if it only applies to organized militias, such as the National Guard. The language is famously ambiguous, fueling ongoing disputes and interpretations. The Supreme Court has played a pivotal role in shaping this debate, especially with the landmark 2008 Heller decision. In that case, the court affirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to own a handgun for self-defense at home, fundamentally changing the legal landscape. In 2022, the court expanded this right in the Bruin case, ruling that Americans can carry firearms in public for self-defense. This decision marked a significant shift, broadening the scope of gun rights beyond the home and into public spaces. These rulings left many questions unanswered. Where exactly can people carry guns? Can states or private property owners restrict firearms in certain places, like schools, government buildings, or private businesses? The boundaries remain hotly contested. The result is a patchwork of laws, as states and local governments try to balance public safety with constitutional rights. Some states have strict regulations while others have far more permissive laws, creating confusion and controversy. For some Americans, gun ownership is a core part of their identity, heritage, and sense of safety. For others, the prevalence of firearms is a source of fear and a pressing public health concern, especially in the wake of mass shootings and rising gun violence. The Second Amendment debate continues to evolve, with each new court case, legislative action, and public tragedy adding new layers to its meaning and impact on American society. Understanding this amendment is key to understanding the ongoing struggle over freedom, safety, and responsibility in America, a debate that touches every community and shapes the nation's future. After the Supreme Court's Bruin decision, Hawaii passed Act 73 in 2023, dramatically changing its gun laws. The law banned guns in many sensitive places, and most controversially created a presumptive ban on carrying firearms on private property open to the public, like stores and restaurants, unless the owner posted a sign allowing guns. This flipped the usual rule. Instead of "no guns allowed" signs, businesses had to post "guns allowed" to permit firearms. Gun owners argued this made it nearly impossible to exercise their rights, since few businesses would post such signs. Hawaii defended the law as a way to protect public safety and respect property owners' rights. This clash set the stage for a major legal showdown. Hawaii's law pitted 2 core American rights against each other: the right to bear arms for self-defense and the right of property owners to control their land. Gun rights advocates said requiring explicit permission from every property owner made self-defense rights meaningless in daily life. Supporters of the law argued that property owners shouldn't be forced to allow guns if it makes them or their customers feel unsafe. The debate boils down to this: should the default be that guns are allowed unless banned, or banned unless allowed? The Supreme Court was asked to decide which principle should prevail in the modern era. The Hawaii gun law was challenged in federal court, where a district judge blocked it, saying it conflicted with the nation's tradition of gun regulation. The judge argued that the law went against established legal precedents and raised important constitutional questions about the right to bear arms versus the authority of states to regulate firearms. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that decision, allowing the law to take effect, arguing property owners have always had the right to exclude guns. The appellate judges emphasized that private property rights are deeply rooted in American law, and that owners should have the power to decide whether firearms are allowed on their premises. This split between courts created confusion and legal inconsistency, a classic reason for Supreme Court intervention. When lower courts disagree on how to interpret the law, it can leave citizens, law enforcement, and lawmakers uncertain about what rules actually apply. Gun owners filed an emergency application, asking the Supreme Court to block the law while the case was appealed. They argued that their constitutional rights were at risk and that immediate action was needed to prevent harm while the legal battle continued. The court's willingness to step in signaled serious concern about how lower courts interpreted its previous rulings. The justices wanted to ensure that their past decisions on gun rights were being properly followed and not misapplied by lower courts. By intervening, the Supreme Court aimed to clarify the rules for carrying guns on private property. Their decision would help set a clear standard for future cases, guiding both state legislatures and the courts on how to balance individual rights with public safety. The outcome would have major implications for gun laws nationwide. States across the country were watching closely, knowing that the Supreme Court's ruling could influence similar laws and legal challenges elsewhere. The stage was set for a decision that could reshape the balance between gun rights and property rights, potentially affecting millions of Americans and setting a precedent for years to come. The Supreme Court's decision in the Hawaii case is being watched nationwide. States like New York, California, and New Jersey have similar laws restricting guns on private property without explicit consent. If Hawaii's law is struck down, these states' laws could fall too, making it easier for licensed individuals to carry guns in public places unless businesses post signs banning them. If upheld, states could continue to prioritize property owners' rights to keep guns out. Either way, the case will clarify the balance between the Second Amendment and private property rights. The decision will shape the next chapter of America's gun debate. Beyond legal theory, gun laws have life or death consequences, especially for domestic violence survivors. The Supreme Court has upheld laws barring those under domestic violence restraining orders from owning guns. But in states like Texas, weak enforcement means abusers often keep their firearms, leaving survivors at risk. Survivors like Maury Danielle say protective orders are meaningless without real follow-up. The risk of homicide rises dramatically when abusers have guns. States with strong enforcement like California see fewer intimate partner gun deaths. These stories highlight the urgent need for effective enforcement, not just laws on paper. The fight for stronger enforcement is a reminder that real lives are at stake in the gun rights debate. The Supreme Court has just issued an 8-1 emergency ruling, temporarily blocking Hawaii's new law that restricts where guns can be carried. This decision, while not final, immediately halts enforcement of the law and sends a strong signal about the court's current thinking on gun rights. For now, this means that licensed gun owners in Hawaii are allowed to carry their firearms in most public-facing businesses, unless the business owner has clearly posted a sign banning guns on the premises. This could affect daily routines for both business owners and gun owners across the state. The move signals the Supreme Court's skepticism about broad, sweeping bans on carrying guns in public places, especially when those bans are imposed by state or local governments. The justices appear to be questioning whether such restrictions go too far. While this ruling is only a temporary measure, it strongly hints that the court may ultimately lean toward favoring gun rights over state-imposed presumptive bans. Legal experts are watching closely to see if this signals a broader shift in Second Amendment interpretation. Other states with similar laws, like New York, New Jersey, and California, may now face new legal challenges as a result of this decision. Lawmakers and advocacy groups in those states are already preparing for possible court battles. The next step is crucial. The Supreme Court will decide whether to take up the full case and potentially issue a binding national precedent that could impact gun laws across the entire country. Americans everywhere should pay close attention to the court's final decision, as it will define where and how people can exercise their right to bear arms in public spaces, affecting communities nationwide. Ultimately, the outcome of this case will shape the future of the Second Amendment in modern America, influencing not just legal debates, but also the everyday lives of millions of Americans for years to come.